In this video, I'm going to be talking about dynamic library. What is a dynamic library? A dynamic library is a programming concept in which libraries with special functionalities are launched only during program execution, which minimizes overall program size and facilitates improved application performance for reduced memory consumption. In most software programs, distributing specific functionalities into distinct modules allows loading as needed. A dynamic library is never part of an executable file or an application. During runtime, a link is established between a dynamic library and an executable file or application. So what does that mean? It means that a dynamic library is not a static library. It means that a dynamic library is not ever compiled or built into the program itself. It's dynamically linked, which means that the program doesn't actually come with the library that needs to run or needs to execute. It has to link out. It has to request a link to that dynamic library that exists outside of that program. Software platforms use different mechanisms for dynamic library implementation. A dynamic library is called and activated because it's software language and operating system, or OS. Dynamic library evolved from the following concept. If multiple applications use certain library functionalities via several lines of code, it's easier to maintain and upgrade different library versions rather than apply the corresponding application changes. Right? So if Joe's video game and Bob's video editor, right, both use the same library, it's easier to just have the library be separate and update that library, right, than to try. It's easier to update one thing than to go in and update two things, right? So it's just easier to have the library be separate from the program and just update the library. And not only that, it makes the programs themselves. So instead of the super duper library being both in Joe's video game and John's video editor, right, and having the library be copied in both Joe's video game and John's video editor, which takes up space, instead both programs do not have the library. They just link to the same library. So there's only one copy of the library instead of two, and that greatly solves space. That greatly saves on space when you have 30 or 40 or 50 programs using the same library and referencing back to the same library. So instead of 40 or 50 copies of the same program for each and every same library for each and every program, 50, 60 programs can just link back to the same library, greatly saving on space. A dynamic library is loaded into the address space during execution runtime or launch. When it's loaded at execution runtime, a dynamic library is known as a dynamically loaded library or dynamically linked library. When loaded at launch, a dynamic library is known as a dynamic dependent library. So that's what a dynamic library is, as opposed to a static library. A static library is built into the program. A dynamic library is built outside of the program that the program can then reference to when it's launched or when it's needed. And that's my little video for today. I hope you guys like this video. Like, comment, share, and subscribe, and help the channel out. Appreciate it.